Well, good morning, everybody here at the factory and everybody joining us wherever you are online as part of our online worship community. We're thrilled to have you here as well. If you're here in the room, you've got a seat drop on your chair. This is for you to take home and staple to your fridge for a few reasons. One is for you to invite some friends. We've got 8 Christmas Eve services that we are so pumped on, and they are going to be so user-friendly. We know every year there are people that come to church once a year. It's on Christmas Eve. And we are thrilled to be able to worship and to proclaim Jesus with them. And maybe you've got some friends or family that want to come with you. Also, staple it to your fridge as a reminder to pray for the team and all of the volunteers and everybody that's going to be working at this over those 8 services. We would love for you to do that. So I want you to come with me to a jungle. So you step into the jungle, and it's like stepping into a living cathedral. I mean, the light is shimmering through the emerald leaves in the jungle. Your ears are accosted with a symphony of creatures. You're not even sure what they all are. The smell is this incense of moss and wet soil, and it's a remarkable place. And as you step into the jungle, just a few steps, you spot a couple of hunters. You're intrigued. So you watch the hunters. You can tell they're hunters, but they don't have any guns. They don't have any nets. They don't have any archery equipment or spears or any weapons like that. In fact, one of them is holding a banana. The other is tying a jar to a tree. And you're intrigued and you watch as they put the banana into the jar, and then they walk away. Well, a short time later, a curious monkey comes along and smells something. His nose takes him to the jar, reaches in for the banana, and then tries to pull the banana out, but is unable to pull the banana out. It plays with the banana for a little while. It kind of pulls on the jar for a little while, and then the hunters begin to move in. Now, the monkey goes crazy. The monkey is squawking. The monkey is flailing. The monkey is doing everything it can to get out of this trap. And you're sitting there going, what are you doing? Let go of the banana and you'll get out of the trap. But it doesn't. It seems almost unable to let go of the banana. And so the hunters move in and snatch the monkey. You say, cute story. Silly monkey. I would never do that. Let me take you to another jungle, corporate America, 1888. The Eastman Kodak Company is founded, and it becomes the king of the jungle, the king of photography. For nearly a century, it dominates the markets in terms of photography, selling film processing equipment, the chemicals, the cameras, the flash bulbs, everything. It has got its fingers in every part of the market. It is dominating. In fact, its name becomes synonymous with capturing memories. And then something extraordinary happens in 1970. They hire a 24-year-old engineer right out of university. They want him to stay out of trouble, so they put him in a back room and say, here, play with this project. He plays with the project, and he ends up creating the world's first digital camera. It's clunky. The resolution is horrible in comparison to anything we know today. It looks like a science experiment gone wrong, but this guy named Steve Sasson proudly presents this invention to the executives of Kodak. He explains that this is going to be the revolution of photography. This is going to be photography of the future. It is going to be a future without film. And the executives, instead of celebrating his discovery and his invention, are threatened. They're threatened because this whole digital concept is a threat to their golden goose, which is film. And they actually laugh at him and they say, ridiculous. How nobody would ever want to look at their pictures on a TV screen. That'll never happen. And so they bury the project. They make sure that it never sees the light of day. They keep Steve back there and they say, you cannot tell anybody about this. In essence, the Kodak company executives had their hand in the jar holding on to the banana of a century of success, unwilling to let go of it. And in 2000, digital cameras went viral everywhere. Everybody's got digital cameras. They're on our phones, and we carry them with us everywhere we go. And the king of the jungle, Kodak, was captured, and in 2012 filed for bankruptcy. This tragic irony, of course, of the monkey being caught by the jar, or the executives of Kodak being caught by the jar, is that they weren't actually trapped. They were free the whole time. They just couldn't let go of the banana. So welcome to week 4 of The Blank That Stole Christmas. And this week, we're filling in the blank with the banana, except instead of calling it the banana, we're going to call it the cares. The cares that stole Christmas. Now, this word cares, such a little word, just 5 little letters. It seems so unassuming. It seems so non-threatening. It seems so small and really unimportant to have the power to steal Christmas. But not only does it have the power to steal Christmas, it has the power to steal your laughter and joy. It has the power to steal your peaceful night's sleep and your days. It has your ability to steal your dreams and your hopes and your freedom. It's a small, innocent little word, but it is remarkably enticing and very, very difficult to peel your hands off of. It's almost like it's magnetic. And so what are these cares that we speak of? Well, Jesus actually used the word cares for the first time in the New Testament. And we're told of a story where he is around an inland lake, and it's really the Sea of Galilee, and a bunch of people are coming to him, and they're listening to his teaching. And they're very intrigued by his teaching, and so more and more people are coming. They're coming out of Capernaum and Nazareth and different places, and they're coming to listen to Jesus teach. And so many people are gathering that the crowd is beginning to push him towards the water. So he jumps in a boat and pushes off land a little bit, and now he's able to speak to the people, and he tells stories. And one of the stories you've probably heard before, it's a simple story about a farmer who is sowing seed. Planting seeds. And he says there's this farmer, he's planting seed, and some of the seed, it falls and is snatched by the birds. Some of it falls on rocky ground, so it doesn't grow. Others of it are choked by weeds. And his point is that the seed is the Word of God. It's the work of God in your life. And to get even more specific here, in Mark chapter 4, verse 19, describing these distractions and things that steal the seed of what God wants to do. He says this, the cares, this is the first time in the New Testament we see this word, the cares of the world and the deceitfulness of wealth and the desires for other things come in and choke the word, and it becomes unproductive. This is the first time we see this word. In the Greek, it's merimna. Merimna means to be drawn in different directions. To be torn, to be divided, to be distracted, to be diverted. And when you are torn and diverted and distracted and pulled in different directions, stuff happens inside of you. You become anxious. You become consumed. You become worried and fearful and apprehensive because of these things that pull you apart, these cares. And the cares of the world and the deceitfulness of wealth and the desires for other things come in and choke out what God wants to do in your life. So today we want to ask 4 probing questions of this little word, cares. Number 1, what are the cares of the world? Specifically, what are these bananas in the jar? Well, they come with lots of different names on them. One of them is simply problems. What kind of problems? It can be anything, like literally anything. Your oven stops working. Your car is making a noise and you're afraid of how much it's going to cost to fix. Your teenager is failing in 2 classes and you're not sure how to change the behavior or the results. You're having a struggle with your spouse. There's the interest rates and the markets and your job security. I mean, it can be anything. We can name 1,000 different things that are the problems of life that we tend to reach in and grab onto, and we're unable to pull our hand out. We're trapped because of the problems. Some of them are unseen. Emotions is another care. We can't see these things. They're a feeling, they're a thought, they're a sensation, something that's lodged in our soul that just goes around and around and around and around, and we overthink it, and we are trapped by this thing. These are amongst the trickiest of bananas to actually get set free from. These emotions that convince us that they're true. These emotions will tell you, I have your best interest in mind, but seldom do they have your best interest in mind. They're often lying to us. What else are the bananas that are in the jar that we can't let go of? Well, some of them are very good. Some of them are dreams. Some of them are longings for something really good. Maybe it's a business expansion that you're in charge of, that you just think about 24/7 and the possibilities of what could happen if this business venture actually takes off. Maybe it's a new relationship. Maybe it's a dream that seems like it could be coming true. It's very easy for us to grab onto these good things and to not be able to let go of them, and they become a trap. For some of us, it's much more sinister. It's an addiction. Something we haven't even told anybody about, but we're beginning to notice in our own lives that we have this pattern, an unhealthy pattern that we keep going to, and every time we do, we feel guilty, and then we say, we're not going to do that again, but then we do it again and again and again, and it's becoming something of a dark side of us. We hate it and we love it all at the same time. So what are the cares that are represented by this banana in the jar? Well, they can be almost anything. They can be positive, they can be negative, they can be bright and shiny, they can be dark and sinister. There's something we just can't seem to let go of. Number two, why do we hold on to them? Why can't we let go of these bananas in the jar? Well, to understand this, you need to understand that it's more than just physical, and it's more than just logical or rational or emotional even. It's spiritual. There's a very strong spiritual element to this. For many of us, the reason we can't let go is because of fear. We've been told that by this thought in our own mind that if we let go, if we let go of this thing, we're going to lose control. And so we don't want to lose control, so we hang on to it. It can even be something that is toxic in our lives, and still we hang on to it because we're afraid. There's fear associated with it. Another reason could be pride. We say, I can handle this. Whatever this is that has me, and we often say, I can let go of this anytime I want. I just don't want to right now. But I know I could let go of this anytime I want. And yet, we never let it go because the reality is we can't, because we're being prideful and we're saying, I got this, I can handle this. I don't need anybody else's help. Another reason we hang on to them is comfort. Even when the banana is toxic and poisoning our spirit, we'd rather hang on to this trap, this chain that we know, than to be set free into the unknown, because the unknown is scary. There's a lot of deceit that happens here. Jesus in that verse mentioned the deceitfulness of wealth. Most of us would assume that wealth is always being truthful. But Jesus says, no. Wealth itself will become a trap to you. Wealth will tell you that it has the solution, that it will solve your problems, that you are going to be more secure, that life is going to be better if you were wealthier, if you had more money. And Jesus says, listen, you got to realize that's a lie. It's a trap. It's a trap, and that's why Jesus calls it the deceitfulness of wealth. Question number 3. What gets destroyed when we hang on to these cares? Well, that answer is really easy. Everything meaningful. What gets destroyed when you hang on to this banana in the jar and you are unable to let go of it is it destroys everything meaningful in your life. Your spiritual growth. This banana becomes a blood clot in your spiritual life. It becomes a blocked artery. It restricts the flow of the Spirit of God in your life when you are trapped by this. Your peace. Your peace will often be sacrificed. A sure sign that you are hanging on to a banana is that you're experiencing anxiety and restlessness and you feel divided and uptight. I think it would be absolutely fascinating if we had some sort of little mechanical electronic gizmo with a couple of wires and probes that today I could just hook up to your soul. Wouldn't that be fascinating? And we could just kind of sit here and hook it up to each person and then have projected on the screen the level of your peace. I wonder how many of you would register 8, 9, 10 on the peace scale. And the dial would kind of go over there and you'd be at this place where you got lots and lots of peace in your life. Or, I wonder how many of us would register maybe more like a 2, a 1 or a 2, a place where you don't have any peace at all in your life. I wonder where that dial would be. Would it be in the middle? Would it be in a really high spot? Would it be in a really low spot? This isn't scientific, but I would suggest that anything less than a 5, I think you want to ask the question, might I have my hand wrapped around a banana in a jar? Because these cares steal peace. They are peace stealers. Last weekend, if you were around, you remember I issued a challenge to those of you 45 or older, my people I called them. I said, here's the challenge, or here's a word for you. And we were talking about expectations and hope. And I said, expectations and hope get slipperier the older you get. They get much harder to hang on to. And I said, if you are 45 or older, I want you to know that the dark forces of this world don't want you to dream anymore. They don't want you to be fired up with hope and expectation. They would rather that you just kind of drifted off into obscurity and didn't make a difference in anybody's life and thought that you were done. They would love that because they know that your years of experience and your wisdom and your potential are a threat to their purposes. And I said that expectations and hopes are slippery. Especially the older we get, they become very hard to hang on to. Well, cares are the exact opposite. They're not slippery. They're sticky. And they become so much more difficult to get rid of. Your hands are stuck to these cares. What I didn't tell you last week is that I've got some experience with this. You see, a couple of years ago, for about an 18-month period, I had my hand in a jar. I didn't tell anybody about it. I didn't talk about it. But I knew I was stuck. And you might even laugh at what the name on the banana was. And I've told a few people since then about this, but it was retirement jealousy. I was jealous. I was watching my peers, many of them firefighters, police officers, nurses, business owners, paramedics, various trades, people that were getting to my age, and they were retiring. And I was watching them go golfing and go fishing and go on trips, and I could see that they had unbuckled their life from the weight of responsibility. Meanwhile, I was feeling crushed under the weight of responsibility, and I became jealous. For 18 months, I had my hand in the jar, holding on to this retirement jealousy, unable to talk about it, unable to really even know what it was, but I can tell you I was fixated, I was envious, and it was destroying things in my life. It was destroying relationships. It was destroying the call that God has on my life and the purposes that God has for me. It was destroying my peace. I was down there in a 2 zone somewhere because of what was going on. I was grumpy. And if you ask Carolyn, I was hard to live with. More hard than I normally am to live with. And things were dying. So we decided to go on a 2 to 3 day prayer retreat. We went off to a cabin, and she had her things that she was doing and working through, and I was just praying and searching Scripture and journaling, and I had to break this thing. And we left the prayer retreat, and I had experienced no breakthrough at all. It was like heaven was locked up. I hadn't heard a thing. And so we leave the cabin, and we're driving back, and Carolyn assumes her usual position while driving. About 2 minutes into the trip, she falls asleep. She's gone. And I'm just thinking as we're driving along. And to this day, I would say that the Lord spoke to me. That He swung a door open for 3 seconds to let me see something, and then He closed the door. But that's all I needed. In that moment, in 3 seconds of His intervention, my hand came off of the banana, and I was set free. I've been to numerous retirement parties since then. I've had numerous friends come to me and say they're retiring. I am so excited for them, but I wouldn't want to be them because God's given me something else. You see, here's the deal. When you're hanging on to this, you can't receive what God has for you because your hand is stuck to a trap. And for 18 months, I couldn't receive what God had for me. But the second I was set free and able to let go of that, my hands were free. And God set something in my hands that got me so excited that for the last 2 years, I've been feeling more like a teenager. I've been so excited about the vision that God has and what He's doing and where He's stirring my heart these days. What gets destroyed is our relationships, our spiritual growth, our peace, our relationships, our joy, our freedom, and what God has for us in our lives. The banana is a trap. It's a tether, and it will imprison you. So, last question. What are we supposed to do with these things? How are we to deal with these cares of life, these distractions and divisions? Well, in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 7, God makes it absolutely clear in a simple little verse. He says this, casting all your cares on Him because He cares for you. Casting all of your cares on Him because He cares for you. Boy, that feels so simple, doesn't it? There's nothing complicated about that. And yet I would suggest to you that it's a lot more complicated, a lot more challenging, and it's something of a journey to become set free. Instead of me telling you about that journey, I would love to introduce to you Jerry and Chrissy Baker. Why don't you guys come right now? They're our Riverwood missionaries, some of our Riverwood missionaries. They're from Romania. They're home for Christmas right now. Would you please give a very warm Riverwood re-welcome to Jerry and Chrissy? Why don't you guys tell us about this whole care thing?
Good morning. Or as they say in Romania, bună dimineața. Wow, very good. Yes, we are Jerry and Chrissy, along with our 2 girls, Miriam and Eden. We've been serving in Romania for the past 8.5 years. It's been quite a wild ride for us, especially last Christmas. We went through a very challenging season of transition, which we're going to open up for you and share about. But first, I want to give you a bit of context before we get there. When me and Chrissy first got married, we both knew from the very beginning that we wanted to serve full-time in missions somewhere on the planet. We didn't know where or when. We just knew the calling was quite strong. And we were living in Winnipeg, and as all of you know, living in Winnipeg is challenging, and we just got sucked into the cares of the world. I was working as a carpenter. Chrissy was working as a teacher. And we just had a ton of bananas in our lives, in the jar. We had a mortgage to pay. We had vehicles to insure. We had children to feed, even a debt to pay off. And the jar was full of bananas. And even I started struggling with some deep depression during that season. Chrissy was struggling with me because of that. And that whole calling that we felt of going into missions full-time just really was not a reality. We were tied to this jar in our life. It was just an unrealistic dream anymore. We just felt stuck and just like we were being choked out by the cares of the world. But we fortunately began attending Riverwood in 2009, and we just loved it there. We loved how real everybody seemed to be, the ripped jeans and broken people vibe. We just loved that we could just be ourselves here. And so we started attending. We joined small group. We joined worship teams. We really got immersed in the church. And we found ourselves in a place where we were beginning to grow spiritually, beginning to hear the Word of God preached to us and taught. And we started to hear the Lord speaking directly to us. I remember one specific sermon that Pastor Todd was preaching, Matthew 10:39, where it says, whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. And it was one of those sermons, it seemed like Pastor Todd knew our situation and had designed a sermon just for us to hear. And we hear he was preaching about being courageous enough to say yes to Jesus and to just obey in the direction that he led us in. And it was just, I remember during that sermon just fighting the urge to stand up and go, okay, Pastor Todd, we'll go into missions. Just stop, please. We're going. I felt a strong conviction there. And it was just through that season that we began, letting go of all the bananas in the jar. And we felt ourselves in a place where we were ready and we had cast our cares onto the Lord in such a way that we felt free now to step into what he had prepared. And what began was, like I said, an incredibly challenging journey. If Chrissy wants to.
So at that time, in 2016, we basically sold everything that we owned. We gave up our careers. We said goodbye to our family, to our Riverwood small group, to our friends, and even left our dog behind. And packed up everything we owned into about 8 suitcases. And we flew to Romania with our 2-year-old and 4-year-old. And it was very exciting, but also very terrifying at the same time. Our first year in Romania was extremely difficult. I won't go into details, but we were just plagued with so much sickness and injury. One of our daughters was hospitalized. We had broken bones, 2-degree burns. It was just anything that could happen happened. And all that on top of settling into a new culture, learning a new language. It was an extremely challenging year. And it was clear to us that very early on that our ministry situation there was going to be very difficult. For many reasons. The way that the ministry was run, it was not an easy ministry situation for us. We built really great relationships with our colleagues and people in the community. We immersed ourselves in the Romanian culture and the language, and we really had to depend on God to sustain us as we worked very, very, very hard, too hard, in fact, and it became a real strain on our family and our marriage. We were so blessed to start and lead 3 Bible school semesters each year that we were there, and to disciple so many students. It was a huge blessing for us at the same time. And for the last 2 years there, we really sensed that the end might be coming. But again, we found ourselves with our hand in the jar around the banana, just the fear of the unknown. And in the first week of December last year, it became clear to us that it was time for us to go. There were some really difficult circumstances that we won't go into details about, but we made the decision to leave the ministry center within about 3 weeks, the last 3 weeks of December last year. And that was a very traumatic time for our family. It was so many big changes all at once. It wasn't just Jerry leaving a job. It was also us leaving our community. It was us leaving the only home our kids had ever lived in, really, had ever known. And all of this during the last 3 weeks of December. So we had to find a new place to live, which was not an easy thing to do. And we didn't know what was next. We didn't really have a plan. And it was during that time we were very, very grateful for the spiritual deposits, we'll say, that we made into our relationships with God over those years, spending time in His Word and working on our relationship with Him, becoming close to Him. And we were very clearly reminded of His care for us, that He saw the deep pain that we were in, the struggle that we were facing, our fear, and He cared about every detail of it. And He showed us that He cared, because within 2 days, we found a home to rent, and it was a total miracle. Even though the rent was more than we could afford, we had been living in staff housing up until that point, not having to pay for housing. And when we got home from seeing our new apartment for the first time, we got an email from Carolyn saying that Riverwood was going to give us a gift. And even though nobody here knew the details of what we were going through, it was enough to cover 3 months of our rent, which we took as just further evidence that God was taking care of us. And of course, I'm not going to say that Christmas was easy. It was not easy. It was very hard. Life was very heavy. The unknown. Most of our belongings were in boxes. Life was very chaotic. And just the fear of the unknown was so palpable between us. But it was important for us to remember that none of this chaos that we were experiencing changed anything about the truth of Christmas. Because 2,000 years ago, Jesus still came. And He is God with us, Emmanuel. And we really felt His presence during that time in the midst of all of the heaviness. And we were reminded that when life feels so heavy that you can't bear it, and you've got your hand in the jar hanging on, God is near, and He hasn't forgotten you. He didn't forget us. And He's near and He's active in your circumstances. And so what felt then like an absolutely overwhelming situation last December, from where we stand now, it just feels like a gift.
Yeah, and it's because we were able to let go of those bananas and just cast our cares onto Jesus, and that brought us into a season where we could, just rest in what He had prepared in advance for us. We ended up going on a sabbatical for a number of months, which was huge. We found rest, we found healing, we found growth in our family and in our marriage. It was a really blessed time, and we ended up, after the sabbatical, taking on a new ministry position in a local church in Romania, where I became the pastor of outreach, it just ended up being such a great fit after all that we had experienced before. God used all of that and just transferred it into the new season that we entered into. And so He knew what He was doing the whole time. We just had to let go and cast our cares on Him, and He provided for us. And so that was amazing. A lot of people have asked us in the past, why did you go to Romania? Why didn't you stay in Winnipeg and serve here? You know the culture, you know the language.
Or why did you not just leave when the first ministry position ended?
Yeah. But our answer, we've sort of narrowed it down to a very simple one, and it's because Jesus. We didn't say yes to a certain leader in Romania. We didn't go there because we loved Romanians so much, even though we love them so much now. We went there because we just said yes to Jesus way back in that service. We wanted to follow Him, we trusted Him, and we went because of Him. And because of that, we found the strength to stand through the storm that we were going through. We had established our house on Him, and when the storms came, it didn't blow us over because we were there for Him. And that was great. Psalm 55:22 talks about this. It says, "Cast your cares on the Lord, and He will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken." And that's really where we found ourselves. Once we were able to cast it onto the Lord, He was the one who sustained us.
Yeah, so we're very thankful to be back here in Winnipeg for about a month, visiting our family and our church family. So thanks for having us here today. And we're actually going to be having a celebration evening on January the 2nd at 6:30 at the Fire Hall, just where we'll share more about the ministry in Romania, what we're doing and what we've been up to these last almost 9 years and what's coming. And we'll be singing some songs and having some traditional Romanian desserts. So if you want to join us, you are more than welcome to do that and celebrate with us what God has done and what he is doing and will do.
What a poignant story of an example of the journey. This casting is not easy. What I find so interesting about it is that this phrase, cast your cares, doesn't seem to be lay your cares down, toss them, surrender them, just kind of place them over here, set or lay or drop or give or entrust. The word seems to have much more of a fade back. This is kind of the action. Fade back and cast. Like just throw that thing a long ways away and give it to Jesus. Find out wherever Jesus is and throw it there. You see, when you just sort of lay it beside, it's so easy to pick it back up, isn't it? It's like, well, I'll just pick that back up and just put it back in here. This word cast seems to give this idea. It's almost violent. It's very demonstrative. It's very decisive. It's something that you absolutely throw a long distance away. You can kind of picture it like there's a village, maybe a medieval village, and you live in that village. And in your village, it's a very small village, so you've only got 50 armed soldiers in your village. But the village next door is threatening to take over you, is threatening to attack, and they've got 5,000. You've got 50 soldiers, that's it. And they've got 5,000, and they are threatening to attack you and to take over. You have definitely got a banana in the jar that you're hanging on to. You got worry, you got anxiety. Your peace level is way down at a 1 with 5,000 soldiers against your 50. But what happens if a village just over here, a village with 50,000 soldiers and a king that is benevolent to you says, listen, anytime you're in trouble, all you got to do is call on me and I'll be there. I'll make sure that we protect you. All you got to do is ask. And so you're in the midst of this situation, and so you send a messenger over to that village, to that king, and you say, hey, I'm in trouble. Can you come and help us? And this king sends a message back to you, and the message is absolutely decisive. The message says, no worries. I'm about to send my army, all 50,000 of my soldiers, and I will protect you. You will not be defeated. Signed and sealed with the stamp of the king. Now what happens to your worries? Well, if you continue to focus on the threat, you're still going to be worried and anxious, and your peace will be down low. But if you focus on the promises of this king who is more than able to protect you, suddenly your peace increases and your joy returns and you're able to rest. So let me ask you today, what are you holding on to? What is the name on the banana? Or, like Jerry and Chrissy said, it can be a whole barrel full of bananas that we hang on to. Is yours a grudge? Is yours a past hurt that you just can't let go of? Is yours a worry? A circumstance that you're looking at in life and you just cannot let go of it? Is it an emotion? Is it a problem? Is it a shiny, bright, shiny dream that is so exciting and so full of potential, but it's got you captive? What is it that you are hanging on to? Is there something? If there is, I encourage you to not just lay it down, but to throw it, to cast it a long ways away from you. Let me wrap up simply with this thought. This Christmas, and actually every day of your life, your cares are going to do nothing but try to steal your spiritual growth, the purpose God has for you, your peace, your relationships, your dreams, and your future. Do not let them. Remember 1 Peter 5:7, cast all your cares on Him. Cast all your cares on Him. Do not become trapped. Instead of holding on to your cares, throw them to Jesus and let Him deal with them while you live free.